What's up, beautiful people? Well, look, I'm not going to keep a secret from you. 2025 is closely coming to an end, but there is still a lot of time. And I'm going to tell you the truth and take your hand when I tell you this. You are distracted, and we need to get refocused. And I know for me, I was distracted, but y'all, when I tell you I'm locked back in, I am locked back in. And today I'm going to tell you how I've gotten locked back in, how I'm finishing 2025 stronger than ever, and the 3 things that I think you need to do to step back, reevaluate, get your life together, and let's finish this year as strong as we know that we can. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about what we mean when we say we're distracted. And I'm going to drop a little fact that I read which shocked me, that the average professional woman checks her phone 96 times a day. 96 times a day, which makes complete sense when I tell you what the 3 biggest areas of distraction tend to be for women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s. The first one is digital distractions. That's your email, that's your social media notifications, that's your cell phone, that's people having access to you at all times. The second one is chaos in your calendar, not having a plan, not having clarity on what your day looks like. And so you're constantly in this kind of trying to get organized mode, and then the day is over. And then the third one is draining relationships and commitments that are not pouring back into your cup. So if you think about being distracted and 96 times a day checking your phone, and then you combine that with all of the 3 things that I mentioned, it is no wonder you can feel distracted. You might even be getting things accomplished, but you're still distracted away from the main thing. So how do we handle that? So before we can eliminate distractions, we got to get clarity on what matters the most to us. And when I think about talking to you, like a girlfriend or someone watches my channel, this is what I would tell you. I would tell you to ask yourself this question: what would make the biggest impact on my well-being right now? If I could only focus on 3 things for the remainder of this year, what would those 3 things be? And what activities consistently energize me versus draining me on a day-to-day basis? So I would like for you to just pause the video or write these questions down. I'll definitely put them on the screen. I really want you to think about, like I said, what would make the biggest impact on your well-being for the remainder of the year? What, if you could only narrow the rest of this year down to 3 things, would you focus on? And then what activities bring you energy, bring you joy, bring you laughter, bring you happiness? And if you really need help and you're kind of distracted and you don't know where to go, one thing that I suggest you could do is just draw 3 circles. Put one for your health, put one for your relationships, put one for your purpose. And then write 1 to 2 things in those circles that really resonate with you, that bring you joy, that bring you happiness. You may even be able to identify what should be in that circle that's not in that circle. And that may reveal to you just as well as what's in the circle of what's distracting you. Okay, so now that we know what we want to do and where we want to go, let's talk about the things that we're going to need to do in order to finish this year strong. And I'm going to give you 3 action steps. I would really suggest that you try to utilize all 3 because I think they work in conjunction with each other. And the first one is going to be creating digital boundaries. That's a word for you, that's a word for me. Creating digital boundaries. Y'all, we have to implement some boundaries when it comes to this device here. This right here, I cannot tell you. For some of you, you are better than others, but it's not necessarily like that people are on their phones on TikTok all day or Instagram, even though you could be. I think it's the fact that this is, if you really were to remove your phone or access from your phone out of your day-to-day life, you would really recognize how much more time you have. Because back in the day when you had to get to a computer to check your email, the information sat there until you got to it. And oh my God, the world functioned. Now everything is accessible immediately, but that also means you are accessible immediately. So when someone texts you or when your kids say they need something, they're not waiting till you get home. Or if your husband says, hey, could you stop by the store to get this? It is just the 24/7 access that people have to you. Even that they make it to the point where it literally tells you on your phone if you read someone's message. My daughter will be like, you read my message. Why didn't you reply back? I'm like, girl, what? And so I'm going to suggest that if you can, you implement the one touch rule. I know, touch one. That means that you pick up your phone, you look at your emails, you look at your messages, and then that is it. You have a designated time. Maybe it's the 15 on the hour or the 30 on the hour. Now, keep in mind, if your job is the type of job that requires you to constantly have access to information, then that's not what I'm talking about. But you do control a lot of your free time and your time outside of work. So let's not make excuses that because we have to have access at work, we don't always have to have that same access and accessibility outside of the workplace. And if you really struggle with this is going to be a game changer for y'all. Put your phone on airplane mode for 30 minutes. Get you a timer. If you watch my channel, baby, you know I rock and roll with these little cheap Amazon timers. Set this for 30 minutes and put it on airplane mode. I promise you, if someone really needs to get in contact with you, they will find a way. Stop thinking doomsday. Oh my God, an accident's gonna happen for this 30-minute time that I am in airplane mode. And you will be surprised what happens when you are 30 minutes digitally disconnected. The next one has to do with planning, and this goes back to not having your calendar in sync with your life. And I want you to think about for the rest of the year what your ideal week would look like. I've mentioned this before. This is part of the full focus planner system, but you don't need this planner to do this. An ideal week is, for me, I have meetings that are at the same time on the same day every week. So if I were to take a calendar and map out my week, I would start with plugging in the things that I know. Monday at 11 o'clock, I'm meeting with this group. Monday at 3 o'clock, I'm meeting with this group. Monday at 2 o'clock, I'm meeting with this group. Most of my meetings are on Mondays with my direct reports. So here are the days, here's the times, let me plug it in. Now, what does the rest of my calendar look like? That may be fluid. That may be a pocket of time that I have for meetings. That may be where I go when I visit schools. That could be where I'm in my office and I'm working one-on-one with myself. I will say that one thing that I learned when I first became an administrator that was life-changing, and I tell people I actually make my direct reports do this, is they have to create a 1-hour meeting every week with themselves, and no one can interrupt that meeting at all. It is on their calendar. That means close your door and work. Don't let anybody interrupt you. You will be shocked what you can do with 60 minutes of uninterrupted time to work on the work. Because what happens is if you don't have time to work on your work during the work day, then you bring the work home. And I've always been pretty good about not bringing work home. I just learned that pretty early on. I think it was hardest when I was a principal, but even then, if I didn't have to, I really didn't. So that, and then if you can really have maximum control of your calendar, I actually have one day a month where I try to block off and to spend the whole day planning by myself. This is very hard to do, but if I can get a good 3-4 hours of uninterrupted time, it really helps me bookmark what the next month is going to look like. But that's for the month. We're talking about the week. So then you have your work time too as well. And for me, that's where I time block. I'm going to work out at 5 o'clock in the morning. So then that will go on my calendar. Then when I come home, I usually I'm going to shut down. I'm going to read. I'm going to do my time blocking for the next day. That's on my calendar. I have this ideal week. Friday on my calendar is date night. Locked in, not moving. It's football season, so right now we're going to our son's football games, but that is locked in. Saturdays, once a month, I have sorority meeting. The other Saturdays, it's free. So just thinking about what your ideal week could look like, and then try to build in buffers in between commitments if you can. I will be honest with you, on Monday, my calendar is like back to back to back to back to back. But I do my best to try to have at least 15 to 20 minutes in between meetings if I can, because sometimes A, they run over, but then B, just mentally de-escalating is so critical and important, especially if you're someone at work that has to make decisions for the mass often. And then the last one, y'all, is probably my favorite and probably the one that I'm do the best. It was my Sunday reset. So whether it's a Sunday reset, Saturday reset, whatever your day is that you need to reset, I have a day where I reset. It like signals to the universe. It signals to me to not be distracted, because there are some things that are gonna lock in on Sunday. I'm gonna do meal prep. I'm going to do my facial and my skincare. I'm going to get my workout clothes ready for the next couple of days. I'm going to look at my calendar for the upcoming week, and I'm going to do my weekly preview where I sit quietly and I plan out what the week looks like. I'm going to time block on, see what Monday looks like. I'm going to prep as much as I can so that during the week I am not distracted. I'm going to go get gas and fill my car up. I'm going to look at the weather and think about what clothes I'm going to wear for the week. I am going to review the goals that I set from the previous week and make a determination, do those things need to carry over, or do I need to set new goals? I'm going to go back to my big 3 goals for the quarter and look to see, am I on track for those? Y'all, that quiet time on Sunday where I'm just letting football play in the background, sitting down, depending if the Saints won or lost, that's going to be dependent if I'm having a nice little glass of water, coffee, possibly bourbon, and just really reflect, because having clarity about what's in front of you helps you not be distracted. So remember, y'all, you're not behind. You are just distracted. The world, quite honestly, the way that it moves in today's age is designed for you to be distracted. But you have the ultimate power to focus on the things that matter. And so just to recap, because I'm going to make sure that you understand what the takeaways from this video are. Because watching me talk about what I'm doing is one thing, but you actually being to make it applicable to your own life is actually way more important. So we're going to look at our creating digital boundaries. We're going to look at potentially designing our ideal work. Doesn't mean that it's perfect, but I do think you've seen, and stepping back and plugging some things in will give you a vantage point of how much time you actually have that you may not realize. And then, of course, we're going to have a weekly reset. If there is one thing on here that I think is the most important, it's the weekly reset, because that lets you see what's ahead of you. It lets you see what's behind you too. And I definitely have a video that I can link up here or here on what my weekly reset looks like. So remember, the remainder of 2025 can be different. Just because it started off rough or just because you may be distracted doesn't mean you can't get back on track and focus and finish strong. And I am going to celebrate you, because when you finish this year strong, that means you're going to start the next year even stronger. So as always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.